Hey kids, happy eLearning Day. So today we're going to have a lecture over leukocytes. It's going to be really fast. We don't have that many slides. So just get these notes done and then we're going to pick up with red blood cells when we get back. I have this large lump in front of me. This is in fact Spanky. He loves his blankies. So he'll probably move a little bit and whatnot, so don't be alarmed. That is just him. All right, getting started. So we have our white blood cells. These are called leukocytes because leukeo refers to white. So white blood cell, leukocyte. Now, they end up being produced by interleukins and other colony-stimulating factors within the bone marrow. So this is one of the big differences with how hematopoiesis is going to occur. So we start with the production of these cells, but pretty early on, white blood cells are going to be distinguished from erythrocytes. And we have two main groups. We have granulocytes, which end up having a granular cytoplasm, so you can actually see those dots. And that includes neutrophils, eosinophils, which is a really fun word to say, and then basophils. And granulocytes, the root word a meaning without, have no cytoplasmic granules, and that includes monocytes and lymphocytes. Now, it took me a while to figure this out, but if you look at the neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils, those all end with the word phil, which means to love, and cytes, monocyte, lymphocyte, those are just general cell. Now, a way that I remember the difference between agranulocytes and which ones are granulocytes is by thinking about how neutrophils are filled up with granules. So the granules fill the neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. If you have another way to remember that, go for it, but that's just something that's worked for me over the years. So these are what the white blood cells look like. Of course, we have the macrophage, that's just kind of a generalized white blood cell, erythrocyte, and then we have platelets. We're going to talk about platelets next week. But here are the granulocytes, basophil, eosinophil, neutrophil, and you can see how they have a very grainy texture. It almost looks like agglutination has occurred. Whereas with the monocyte and lymphocyte, they have a very smooth cytoplasm. So our neutrophils, they are the most common type of white blood cell. I know this picture is somewhat cut off, but you can see all of these red circles, those are erythrocytes, whereas this over here, that is going to be our neutrophil. Now, underneath the microscope, I can distinguish this a couple of different ways. The main way is that we have that light purple stain, and the nucleus, instead of being like one solid circle like what we see within a egg with that yolk, we have 2 to 5 lobes. So it can really break off, and that really helps with the differentiation and, of course, producing lots of proteins in order to help identify different bacteria. So they live for about 12 hours, which is not very long, significantly shorter lives than what we see with red blood cells. And their function, and this is what you guys need to know, you need to know that neutrophils phagocytize, they eat bacteria as well as other particles. But this is going to be one of your first lines of defense when you have a bacterial infection. Those neutrophils are going to get really high in number, and then they are going to swarm to that area that is infected. You're going to have a lot of inflammation, and the neutrophils are going to gather around and phagocytize bacteria. So when we see pus is an accumulation of white blood cells attacking that infection. It is most commonly neutrophils that you're seeing with the pus. So, eosinophils, the fun word to say, another type of granulocyte. This is only about 1 to 3% of leukocytes, so we've really dropped off how many we see. They have very, very coarse cytoplasmic granules that end up being pretty red in that acid stain. They only have 2 lobes, have roughly the same lifespan, but they help with attacking parasites. So if you end up having a really, really bad infection of bot flies, which are the flies that will like embed themselves in your skin, it is the eosinophils that are going to try to attack and destroy those. They end up controlling a lot of inflammation, even some allergic reactions, but I need you guys to know that eosinophils are one that end up attacking parasites. Basophils, another type of granulocyte, less than 1% of all white blood cells. They also have 2 lobes, just like we saw with the eosinophils, live about 12 hours. But their important function, they release heparin and histamine. Those are the two proteins, hormones that get secreted, prostaglandins, when you are having an allergic reaction. So if you like to take a lot of Benadryl because let's say you're allergic to dogs or cats or mold, pollen, you'll tend to go on antihistamines. Oops, you are calming down the basophils. Monocytes. It is an agranulocyte. It does not have a grainy cytoplasm, and of course this is in comparison to the granulocytes. It is roughly 9% of leukocytes, so significantly more than what we see with the basophils and eosinophils. The nucleus really varies. They can live up to several weeks or months, and they are just a very general cleanup crew. They will phagocytize just about anything that they come in contact with that does not belong. Whether that is old cells in your body or even just like buildup of protein in your brain. Monocytes are there for you. And then lymphocytes. As you guys could probably tell with this name, it affects the lymphatic system. So this is 33% of leukocytes. This is the second most common, neutrophils being the first. The nucleus is really large and round. It can live for many, many years, and it functions for the immune system. And that's about where we're going to call it for what the lymphocytes do. We'll probably talk a whole lot more about this during the lymphatic system when we go into B cells versus T cells, but lymphocytes is all you need to know for right now. So, your white blood cell count. We have anywhere between 5,000 to 10,000 per millimeter cubed, so that's 1 milliliter, and what disease you have is going to determine what your white blood cells look like. So, if you have appendicitis that is caused by bad bacteria causing an infection within your appendix, we are going to see really, really high levels of neutrophils, specifically because neutrophils attack bacteria. So leukocytosis is what we end up calling it when you have way too many white blood cells. So when a doctor draws blood and is looking at how many white blood cells you have underneath the microscope, if you have a lot of them, chances are you have a massive infection. Now, if you have a deficiency, we call this leukopenia, and you guys do need to know this. This is going to be the case for about any disease that affects your immune system, one of which down here is AIDS. AIDS is known autoimmune deficiency syndrome. This is caused by the virus infecting, attacking, and killing the white blood cells. So if you have a very low white blood cell count, that is called leukopenia, chances are you have an infection or something pertaining to your white blood cells. So there are 4 questions. Pause it, thumbs up, thumbs down, figure out what is true, what is false. I know you guys really struggle with the true or false questions, so practice now. Go ahead and hit pause. All right, so here are your answers. Up, down, down, up. White blood cells are also called leukocytes. This is true. When discussing hematocrit, white blood cells make up a majority of your blood. This is false. Erythrocytes make up a majority of your blood. White blood cells, platelets, make up that 1% called the buffy coat of your hematocrit. The more white blood cells you have, the better you're probably feeling. This is not true because if you have a ton of them, chances are your bone marrow is producing that in order to fight off the infection. And then lymphocytes function to assist your immune system. That is spot on. Okay, another one. Neutrophils are granulocytes, basophils phagocytize materials, monocytes make a majority of your white blood cells. Having an excess of white blood cell count can mean an infection like appendicitis. So go ahead and pause this, figure out if these are true or false. Okay, here are the answers. Yes, neutrophils are granulocytes because the granules are filling the neutrophils. Yay! Basophils phagocytize materials. Nope, that is monocytes. Basophils secrete heparin and histamine. Monocytes make up a majority of your white blood cells. This is false. Neutrophils do. Those are the ones that phagocytize bacteria. Bacteria is one of our biggest enemies. And if you have an excess amount of white blood cell count, that can mean an infection like appendicitis. This is very true. All right, guys, that's it. Go ahead, make a chart of all the granulocytes and agranulocytes, add their functions. Make sure you know which ones are granulocytes and which ones are agranulocytes. This alone is what you need to know for the test. So I'm not going to be asking you what type of white blood cells have 2-lobed nuclei. I'm not going to be expecting that. What I do expect you to know, what are the 3 granulocytes, what are the 2 agranulocytes, what are the functions for all 5. I hope you guys have a warm day. I'll see you later.